What's up everyone, John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo here with the full review of Samsung's latest flagship, the Galaxy S4. Brings a ton of new features, software, and hardware into a pretty awesome package. Let's go ahead and dig in and see if it's the right phone for you. So I want to start the review, as I do now with all of our phones, with a disclaimer. I use this device for 7 days as my daily driver. The version we had to review was Sprint's version with support for their LTE network, although unfortunately where we are in Southern California we didn't have any LTE support, so all the battery tests I'm going to talk about are just representative of using Sprint's 3G network coupled with Wi-Fi. So before I get to all the specs, this is a phone, it's got to make good phone calls, and as is pretty true now with most new devices coming out, phone quality was pretty awesome. Callers on the other end reported hearing no popping, blipping, blopping, or any sort of white noise, and it sounded pretty awesome. I had a lot of requests to talk about the speakerphone. Speakerphone was pretty average. It was a little bit tinny. It wasn't as loud as some of the other phones that we've tested recently, but certainly was suitable. If you rely on speakerphone for business calls or conference calls, you may want to look at an external speaker option. So let me refresh your memory what the Galaxy S4 is packing, and all these specs are for the US version. So it is shipping with Android 4.2.2, so hats off to Samsung for getting that out the door. You're going to want to check with your carrier for pricing and availability, though it will be an option on all 4 major US carriers as well as some regional carriers as well. So from a dimension standpoint, it's 5.38 inches by 2.75 inches by a pretty thin 0.31 inches, and it weighs not that much at 4.59 ounces. So the big story here, and one of the differentiating factors versus the outgoing S3, is this gorgeous screen. It is a full 5-inch screen, which is the 1080p resolution with the 441 ppi. It's using Samsung's pretty awesome Super AMOLED Plus technology. Samsung's done an incredible job with their screens over the years, going back to the original Galaxy S, and they've just gotten better each time. This really is a culmination. The screen here is absolutely gorgeous. But we'll talk about that in the screen section of the review. So battery, it's being powered by a 2600 milliamp hour battery. It's got a 1.9 gigahertz quad-core chip. If you pick up the international version, it'll have a 1.9 gigahertz quad core and a 1.2 gigahertz quad core. It's actually 2 quad core chips making it octa-core, but all the US versions are going to ship with a single 1.9 gigahertz quad core chip. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. Storage, you can get it either 16 or 32, but either configuration, you can expand that with micro SD. And you can get to that micro SD card in the back. You pull off this plastic back, you can get to the micro SD card, the SIM card, and a fully removable battery. So the camera here is also well improved, as is the software that's going to power the camera. It is a 13 megapixel sensor that can shoot 1080p video with a single LED flash down below. And on the front, we've got a 2 megapixel sensor for all kinds of front-facing camera. That's going to come into play when we talk about the software of the phone. So some other interesting things here. It's got an IR blaster on the front. You can use it to control your TV. It worked pretty well. It's funny that most phones now are shipping with technology that's years old, but IR blasters are coming back, and they are very handy. Some other neat things here: 802.11 A, B, and N you'd expect, but also has support for 802.11 N AC. I don't have anything yet that supports 802.11 AC, but presumably over the next 2 years that you'll have this phone, AC will become the sort of commonplace standard. So there is full support for that. Other stuff you'd expect, NFC and Bluetooth 4.0 are also here. So let's start with the design. This is thinner than the Samsung Galaxy S3, and it uses a very familiar product. It's the same polycarbonate plastic we've seen in most of Samsung's products. Take that for what it is. The back of it is a very thin plastic, but I will say when the back is placed onto the phone, it sits pretty flush with the battery, so you don't have any sort of push on it. So the sides also now take advantage of some metal-esque accents. They're not really metal, but they definitely make the phone feel more significant in the hand. It's flat on the side there. So when you hold it on the side, the phone does feel more substantial than the outgoing S3 model. And the phone feels really light, which is very surprising considering all the hardware that's packed inside of this. It's got a really familiar feel to the S3, the Note 2, and it borrows design influences from both of those. This is really typical Samsung through and through. If you're a fan of the S3, the S2, the Note, or the Note 2, you're going to like what's done here. Nothing new in the design standpoint. It's a little bigger and a little thinner than the S3. So one odd thing, the back almost has a greasy liquid type feel to it. I had to keep looking at my hands to make sure they weren't super gross. Just the way the back is made, it always feels like there's a coating of something on it. Took a while to get used to. The last sort of interesting thing, the phone doesn't sit totally flat once it's on a table. There's a little bit of a shake on either side. So if you plan on playing games or doing something like that, definitely be aware there's going to be a bit of rock in there when you use your phone. This is a really high quality device. It's a premium phone, but it doesn't always feel like premium build quality, especially when you compare it to the iPhone 5 or the HTC One. While the phone is certainly in that class for specs, performance-wise, it doesn't always feel the same when it comes to hardware and the way the phone actually feels in your hand. But having that plastic design does have some trade-offs. You do get a removable back, which lets you access that battery if you want to carry an extra battery with you. For me, that hasn't always been a deal breaker. I just carry an external battery that I can plug into any micro USB port. But for some people, they really like having that. And also, I really like having the option for removable storage. Having micro SD is nice to have if you want to do any sort of rooting. It's great to have. But also just for expandable storage, bring your music along, bring your pictures. Maybe you want all your photos to go to Dropbox on your external card. It's really a nice feature, and you can determine how much extra storage you want. So really, the moral with the design is you got to figure out what to trade off to you. If you want to have the expandable storage and you want to have the removable battery, then you're going to have to enjoy the plastic feel of the phone, or at least have to deal with the plastic feel of the phone, the plastic back. If that's not important to you, there are other options. But certainly if that's something that you want your device to have, Galaxy S4 is going to be the way to go. All right, so next let's talk about this gorgeous screen, and this screen really is gorgeous. And for me, a 5-inch screen really is a sweet spot, and Samsung hit this one out of the park. Images look absolutely gorgeous. Text looks crisp and clear. There's no sort of pixelation that goes on with it. Videos, of course, you'd expect to look awesome. Games look straight up baller. The screen here is just gorgeous. I don't know how much to say about it, what I can show you that's going to be representative when you watch this back on YouTube, but the screen here is really good. If you thought the screen on the S3 was good, wait till you see the S4. It's very comparable to the screen on the HTC One and even the screen on the iPhone 5. So if you want that beautiful, crisp, high-def screen, you can't go wrong here with the Galaxy S4. So from screen, let's talk about software, and there's a lot to talk about here at the Galaxy S4. Let's start with TouchWiz. Although Samsung is not really calling it TouchWiz anymore, I'm going to just for the sake of it because it's easier to call it something. So you really can't call it a skin anymore. It's almost a straight brand new carrier version of Android, and it's straight TouchWiz through and through. From the colored icons, the cartoonish look feel, it is all here. But what's also here is a ton of new features. When I say a ton, you better bring out a dump truck to carry all these new features because you're going to need all the room you can get. So some of the highlights here, you've got a brand new notification panel with shortcuts galore. You can access everything that the phone can do pretty much. S-Beam, NFC, Smart Scroll, Sync, Airplane Mode, air gestures, all kinds of stuff will be accessible right there now, which is really nice. So I mentioned something called air gestures. That's new here. Essentially what you can do is you can control different aspects of the phone by waving your hand in front of it. So the best way I can demonstrate that, let's say I want to move an icon. Let's say I want to move that calendar icon right there. I can hold it, I can wave my hand in front of the sensor, and it'll go to the right, keep going to the right, go to the left, and it'll go to the left. You can do a couple cool things with that. You can answer the phone, for example, by waving your hand across it. And it actually does work. You gotta make sure that you're waving your hand across the top of the phone. When I first started testing this, I kept waving my hand across the screen, it wasn't working. So you gotta make sure that you are hitting those sensors. Actually, it does work surprisingly well. So the other new feature here is Air View. If you hover over things, you're gonna get a bigger view, similar to what we saw with the S Pen on the Note 2. So go ahead and open up Calendar, for example. I'll go back to, let's go to Month View. And if I take my finger, which is not going to touch the screen, I hover over a date, it's going to pull up some information to show me what's going on that day. It's a very handy feature. You can use it for a lot of different things. You can use it to zoom in on text on a website, for example. New features should be coming as well, and that is Air View, and it really does work very well. Some other neat things here that were borrowed from the Note 2, you've got multi-window view. So you can bring up a quick view of icons. So you hold down the back button, it'll pop up. Let's say I want to do some Chrome action. I go ahead and open up Chrome. Let's say I want to see what's going on with Messenger, for example. I can go ahead and bring that back. Hold down the back button. Take Messenger. I can drag it out here. I can pick the size that I want it. I can move it down. And now I could view whatever I want on two separate screens. You could switch them. And if you want to close one, you go ahead and just close it, and you are all done and good to go. Kind of a neat feature. It's nice to have. I don't know how often I'd use it, but it's definitely here. A ton of incredible other new features as well. Things like S-Translate, it lets you translate from really any language just by holding the camera over it. And there's really just too much to go through each one, but they've packed this with S-specific features and ton of options, so they really did a nice job with it. So let's jump from the software to talk about the camera. I know it's kind of software based, but there's a lot to talk about here when it comes to camera. It did a pretty decent job in low light, though it did take a while for it to actually focus. We did a full post showing camera comparisons versus the iPhone 5, the HTC One, Lumia 920, so you can check all those out as well. Camera, normal light, pictures were gorgeous, it represented colors very well without really much artifacting. In video, we did demonstrations showing indoor and outdoor. Video footage was very good, but most surprisingly was audio quality. The fidelity of the microphone was awesome.
Pacific time in Southern California. Skies are a little bit overcast. I am holding the phone in landscape mode with my fingers on the top and the bottom, so there shouldn't be any microphone issues here at all. You can see how colors look.
So when you go into the camera, there are a lot of options here and a lot of things that you can do. That mode button holds a ton of pretty crazy secrets. If you hit mode, you're gonna get regular auto, beauty face, it'll enhance facial features as well. Taking a portrait picture is kind of neat. Best photo, it'll take a series of pictures and pick the best one. Best face, will do kind of the same thing and pick the best face. If you have someone in your family that always blinks or can't quite get that smile right, it's a pretty cool feature. You can do sound shot, you can take a picture and put a little bit of audio behind it. So drama is another really cool one too. Essentially to give you a trail of motion throughout the picture. You can pick which trails you want to have in there, which images you want to have in there. Kind of neat. And there's just a lot of options here from HDR and animated photo. It really just does a ton of really cool things. So again, Samsung did a really cool job with making sure all the features were here. One of my favorites though is Eraser. If somebody walks in the background, you can actually just erase them right out. And actually worked pretty decently. All the rest of the stuff you'd expect over here, panorama, sports, night mode, and then back to automatic. So one of my favorite features that Samsung implemented here at the S4 is the ability to use the front and rear facing camera. So if you hit that button right there in the middle, you're gonna get a view of yourself using the front and rear. So we'll go ahead and get something there. You can see John filming, or I'll try and get it on me. You can move it around anywhere you want. If you don't like that circle that's there, you can pick from a ton of different options. So let's say I want a heart shape, for example. I can go ahead and put myself in a little heart and push that back down. Move it anywhere you want. You can resize it to make it bigger or smaller. You can shoot pictures or video like this, which is kind of a neat thing to do if you want to, video chat. I want to take a video, so showing your reaction to something. Kids react to Galaxy S4 video or something. Just a very neat feature. So Samsung really just did a lot of stuff here. Notice that's the theme of the video. Samsung did a lot. They added a ton of features to the software side that really make it stand apart from other smartphones. All right, so let's go from camera and talk about battery. And again, we were only using Sprint's 3G network. We didn't have support for LTE, unfortunately, but battery was pretty impressive. 2600 milliamps go a long way on this guy. I didn't have auto brightness set. I usually set my brightness to about 75–80%. My daily usage, take the phone off the charger about 7 a.m. in the morning. I'll make about an hour and a half to 2 hours of phone calls connected to Wi-Fi 90% of the day. Some pretty heavy instant messaging. I have 2 emails being pulled down and checked every 5 minutes, so replies, a few minutes of video, probably about 15 to 20 minutes. Facebook, Twitter, the rest of the time it's just sitting idle. And by the end of the day, I usually have about 45 to 50% battery life, which is a little bit higher than what I had on other phones. The HTC One, for example, which was connected to AT&T's LTE network while I was here, was about 10% less. So I'm curious what that hit's going to be once we check out a phone that has support from LTE network that's by us. But battery life, don't worry about it. It actually was very good. And of course, it's got a removable back. Just pick up an extra battery if you need it. All right, so next let's talk about performance. And as you'd expect from a 1.9 gigahertz quad-core phone with 2 gigs of RAM made by Samsung, it is stupid fast. Apps open crazy quick, games load awesome, there's no sort of lag when you're scrolling at all. Everything about this phone is really, really fast. The quadrant scores ranged anywhere from 12,000 to 13,000. The last one we did was about 12,400. So really just an incredible performer. This thing is absolutely blazing fast and handled anything that Android can throw at it, and it did it with aplomb. So no issues with performance at all. If you want a phone that's going to be cutting edge and can just handle anything at all, Galaxy S4 is going to be a great way to go. All right, so what's the conclusion on the Galaxy S4? As you can tell, it is an awesome phone packed to the gills with features. If you have a Galaxy S3, did you upgrade? I wouldn't upgrade. This phone is more of a Galaxy S3s. The software features are awesome. Some of them are going to be percolating down to the Galaxy S3. S3. If you're looking to jump into the phone, you have an older generation from the S3, if you got a Galaxy S2, an iPhone 4, or one of those sort of generation of devices, this is going to be a great upgrade for you. You're going to get cutting edge specs, going to serve you well over the next 2 years. You got to ask yourself too, what kind of person are you? The kind of person that wants removable battery, the kind of person that wants expandable storage? Are you the kind of person that either likes the plastic back and the way that Samsung devices feel, or do you prefer that more aluminum solid feel you get on the HTC One or the iPhone 5? If you fall into that latter category, then your decision is very clear. But if it's the former and you want some of those things, Galaxy S4 is an incredible option. I enjoyed using the phone. It was fast, it was powerful. Samsung hit this one out of the park. And I would have liked to have seen some new design cues here, but Samsung went through the old mantra, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we've seen sort of Apple take that similar path with their devices. So this phone gets a very solid 9 and an editor's choice recommendation. If you want to pick up a new phone that's going to serve you well over the next 2 years, look no farther than the Samsung Galaxy S4. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree, disagree? Leave all your comments down below, and please give this video a thumbs up. We most definitely appreciate it. Check out Techno Buffalo for latest and greatest tech news. I'm John Rettinger. I'll see you in the next video.